up, everyone? Switch Double here. And yeah, this is actually just going to be a very short stream since I just wanted to bring in some information about my channel lately. And I thought doing a live stream might be a better option than doing like an actual update video. Um, for a few things I wanted to mention in this sort of update about my channel is that for the time being, I'm still gonna work on some new stories as usual, but it won't be as many as I was hoping to do. Some of the reason to why I'm just well, there's actually just a reason for that. Since I have two flash drives and they are pretty much full, and I can't store so many stores on my channels on my computer due to the OneDrive memory storage. My flash drives are pretty much full, so yeah. And it's just gonna be about that, since I'm also saying that it's also um, some of the stores ideas that I had in mind for the so far for the future is still gonna be a lot of MLP stories, and I actually even have thought of doing some Sonic characters love stories, and I have already several ideas in mind. Of course, there might be a little bit of challenge trying to come up with some basic things. But there is one fact that I'm still being asked questions of being about the next story, being requested a story, which is fine. People can ask me for a love story, a true friend story, as always. But there's only one issue for when people ask me a story. It's not like the story itself, it's the storyline. Because even if I do have seen the characters, I was like, that is actually a good idea. But the thing is, I can't do a story without an actual storyline, since I'm pretty much the only one who came up with the storyline for those stories. Because making a story without even have, well, like say, it's like J.K. Rowling when she was writing the Harry Potter books. If she didn't have the storyline in her mind or what she was planning to put in the story, she wouldn't even have known how long the Harry Potter books would have been or the turn events and that. So basically, what did the same thing as for me. When I'm making my stories, I always had one thing in mind beforehand. Even when people had asked me stories weeks, months, even perhaps a year in advance, there's only one thing that when I see the story, the request, I'm like, that works. But there's only one problem: the storyline. I usually need a storyline for the actual, well, part of the story. Because, I mean, if I don't come up with, I mean, it's like, say, or one of those classical movies that we have seen. Like, say, um, let's see here, like Lilo and Stitch, as an example. If the creators had even came up with the actual storyline, like how Stitch and Lilo even met up, the movie would have been boring. The movie itself would have been boring, eventless. Anything that needs for a very good story is always a storyline. That's always the most important thing. Because every single movie or a book or even a comic series always has a storyline, including in different episodes from different shows out there like the MLP, Pokemon, Star Wars, or anything. There's always a storyline in each episode. That is one of the few things. Because, like, say, if George Lucas, when he made Star Wars originally from the very start, what if he never actually included any form of, if he hadn't even have planned a storyline. If George Lucas never even had a plan for the storyline for his movies, they those movies would have been either just not even published or even be so bad they wouldn't even have been made. So the storyline in everything, movies, books, episodes, is the most important key part in everything. Like say the Brother Grimms, when they made their books of well stories that they had been told, but they wrote down stories and they heard from other people across Europe and all. Because if you're making something like a story or like a book, TV show, or a movie, if you don't have any actual storyline in anything of those, the whole project itself would be so well, it would be bad. No one would even want to watch that or even read it. I mean, like J.K. Rowling, if she never had any storyline for Harry Potter book, the book series, it wouldn't have even been made. In fact, the first book may have not even be so good enough that it just would have been ramble. Like the characters wouldn't even have any actual dialogue or there's such epic events like meeting a monster or anything. Or if she made a book and she really put random parts in the book in itself, it wouldn't even be published. Even if she would spend her own money, the book would have been published, but still. So basically, a storyline is always the most important part of everything, from books, movies, TV shows, everything. Because if you don't actually have a storyline for anything, like myself, when I'm making my stories, anything that I make would be so bad that people would even won't even want to watch my stories. And it makes sense. It makes sense because every time when I'm making a story, I always had a storyline. Always. Because that is most important. I mean, it's very crucial to have a such important part in uh, in your stories and anything. Because if you really don't have any actual storyline to your creations, like if you're making a book, a novel, or anything, or even if you're working on a movie, like if you're making a movie without any actual script, that would have been so. It might not even be as good enough, or even be bad. So I'm just saying. So for any of my future stories that I have in mind, it's gonna be always be that. Of course, if any of our viewers who had asking me for one specific story, if they always if they have a request of what they want to happen in the actual story, that can actually work. Because I had been asked a few times in the past that someone asked me if I could do a story for them, and they usually even added in some small details on like how many kids that they wanted the couple to have or what they wanted to happen in the story. Of course, I'm always happy to be include some of the other people's ideas. I'm always welcome to have any people's in their request if they want to include some well any extra details what they wanted to happen in the actual story. I'm all open for that. I'm willing to help people to make their dream story to come out to be made. Of course, there are always some stories that I might actually not even be making. It, of course, depending on uh, what genre, what franchise. It's like someone, I mean, a few years ago, someone even asked me if I would do a love story based on Malcolm Myers with some of the MLP characters and even Jason Voorhees and that. That's not possible. That's not even possible because they don't even have any actual attachment. They don't even feel any form of romantically. And two, how would my most of my viewers who have been observed my stories in the past and until recently, what they suddenly seeing, wait, Michael Myers with, let's say, rarity? That's not possible because I can't make a story based on a classic killer, movie killer character along with some MLP character or anything, because since Malcolm Myers really don't even show any form of romantically emotions to anyone. So in the past, when I was asked to do some classic movie killer characters shipped with MLP, yeah, that's not gonna happen. Since it's just some of the characters don't even show any form of romantically attachment to anyone. Like Michael Myers, he will kill anyone, even regardless of who that is. And Pennywise, if anyone even suggests him, that might also be a problem because he is. I mean, if anyone shipped Pennywise with any of the MLP characters and asked me to do it as a story, I would strongly, respectfully decline that because Pennywise, he doesn't even show any signs of any care of romantically attachment to anyone because he only wants one thing: hunger. He only has hunger, and he sleeps for 27 years each time. So if he was in being shipped with another male character or another female MLP character, for example, would the person that pony have to been waiting 27 years for Pennywise to at least waking up again and then and all that again? I don't think so. There always will be some characters, some franchises that I may never actually want to be to make. Of course, it depends on like for what franchise it is. Actually, someone had asked me this story, uh, this type of community story request not that long ago. This was actually from the Elements of Insanity. If people knows about it, it was actually Rainbine with um, I don't remember exactly who she was shipped with, but Rainbine is actually Rainbow Dash, who was being possessed by the spirit of a former TF2 character, and she was now turned into like a cyborg. And of course, while she was still as Rainbow, she still had the emotions of loyalty, trust, love. But when she had turned into this Rainbine character of the elements of insanity, she lost that all emotions. And even like say, even Twilight in the elements of insanity, she was also completely insane. Because not only that, she had two deceased spirits possessed in her body. Two. That made her incomplete insane. And not only that, Fluttershy, who was not only as a child, but as also being possessed by a spirit, completely, utterly outspoken, and she showed no remorse. In fact, she wouldn't even hesitate to use her loud scream. So I'm thinking, elements of insanity as of a request for lost stories or true friend stories, I meant to say that's off the table. Because it is just they don't even show any signs of romantically at all, and that just it's just one of the weird, but also, but at the same time, this is not like one of the strange, weird shippings that I haven't come across. I have come across many others beforehand. Like even Derby Borough, there are this massive list of shippings. There are some very unusual and also very strange shippings, like Twilight within the actual book. How that makes sense, I don't know. And so, yeah, I always been, I always, I always look into the characters the each shipping that I've been asked to do if it could work. Because if there's like a crossover, say if MLP characters end up in a human world, that is explained because they can use a magic spell or they can use the mirror that Twilight has in her castle. Or if the vice versa, if there were some other from the human world, from a different franchise, who end up being Equestria by a magical spell. That also works. But it has to always be some very crucial details. But some of the other franchises that I have thought of include is actually Undertale. Yeah, well, Undertale has only a few characters that I can even think of to be shipped with. Like, let's say, I actually had came up with one Undertale story that's involving Toriel, the boss monster, the mother. Um, she has been shipped with a human, and before anyone asks, yes, it's actually been happening since in the past few years, ever since the game even was released years ago. There had actually been tons of chippings between Sans the skeleton with Frisk the human. So I thought, why not if I made a story of my own, like with Toriel with a male human, and it works because I mean, if people have shipped Sans with Frisk, so why not Toriel with another human? It makes sense because in the game, I hadn't even played it, but I've seen the game that the monsters from the underworld actually live peacefully with the humans, and I thought maybe they can actually work. And I actually have been came up with several ideas for Undertale stories and all that, and several Sonic characters which they have been shipped between a Sonic character like a Mobian with a human, and yes, according to this for the Archie comics, that the humans that was living on Mobius, including Snively and Robotnik, they were actually not humans. They were actually descended from the human species, but their species are called overlanders. The only difference between an overlander and a human is that humans has 5 fingers. The overlanders has only 4 fingers, and they are extreme and more aggressive in nature compared to the humans. But here's the thing: the movie. I even looked into this. That apparently it turns out that the overlanders can actually have a child with a Mobian because the Mobians actually has human DNA in them, and they weren't part of some sort of genetic experiment by the humans. No, because in Archie comics, Earth was attacked by an alien species after that a group of scientists killed the aliens' emissary who came to Earth for peace or even offer an alliance. So this alien species called Exorda, they used bombs on the planet. The bonds were called gene bonds, which somehow in the process mixed human DNA with animal kingdom, which eventually evolved into the Mobian species. So, in a way, Mobian species, like say Amy Rose, could have a child with a human or an overlander, or vice versa. I'm just saying it's very possibility in that. But unfortunately, it's since Archie Comics no longer is considered as canon anymore, or at least that's just yeah. Well, but there's also in the Archie Comics you can actually read crossbreeding between, let's say, um, echidna with an echidna with a hedgehog is possible. Why? Well, there is actually one known the Echidna. She was actually a female part of this lost tribe of the Echidnas. And the male was actually Rob Dale Hedge, a male hedgehog. He is actually even the male cousin to Amy Rose. And he is very similar to like Robin Hood in using a bow and arrow. So it's very a possibility for all of that. So in my opinion, stories of between that I'm planning to do between human character with a my OC or even other random human OC with a Mobian is possible. In fact, I had been planning for several ideas for even that, and of course, um, even been asked about, well, not been asked, but I also have been planning for more Frozen stories also. Because a couple of weeks ago, I actually finished my very first Frozen crossover story, Elsa with Celestia. And it's text and music story. And I honestly, it turned out longer than I expected, but it is really made. And I was also even considered to making another Frozen story, not a crossover. Anna, who is going to be shipped with a male dragon. I actually made a vote. I made actually a voting post, a voting poll that people could actually say. I did the question in that voting poll. Do you ship Anna with a male dragon? Yes, no, or maybe. So far, 5 yes, which means 100% yes has said for that they want to see that. And I didn't make the story in advance because I just haven't really worked out the very detail. And like I said, the most important of every story is the storyline, always. Because making a story without even have the actual storyline, it's that makes the whole thing completely random or mumble jumble or somebody how would say it. Or Knuckles with Rouge will be half and half. That might be true, Cody. You see, in Archie comics before the timeline was changed, there were hundreds or thousands of echidnas on Mobius. But before the timeline changed, Knuckles were the only one left behind, minus, including not only if you don't include um, Amy Rose has male cousin's wife who is an echidna. So I'm just saying it's gonna be a very much a challenge because the reason to why the echidnas were gone, they were banished. They were literally banished by this um, Tasmanian devil, not like Taz, but this particular Tasmanian devil, he was actually one of the very few intelligent Tasmanian devils left behind. So yeah, it's the I mean the very old timeline of the Archie comics are I never actually read them by myself, but just looking at the Archie Sonic Wikia, that contains all the information that it need to required to read more about it. I mean, it's unbelievable how the things happen. But there was only one puzzle. Uh, there was actually one. Uh, there was actually one detail in the old timeline that was very puzzling. That was actually for um, since, like I mentioned, those the alien species Exorta in Archie comics. They attacked Earth. The gene bonds were only supposed to have been wiping out the humans but leaving the remaining Earth ecosystem untouched. But the gene bombs had a side effect that they sort of didn't expect it to happen. The bombs, sure, kind of changed the entire planet. I mean, this was literally in the early 2000s, according to the timeline. And well, the name did change at that time, though, Cody. That didn't happen for millennia. Here's a further this. If you have seen Sonic the Hedgehog, the show, that's pretty much based on the Archie Comics characters. In that series, the year is 3,235. The 3,235. But it's just crazy enough because when the Exorda came to Earth, they thought that they had wiped out the humanity and they left. You may be thinking that was like early two, so the Mobian society, the Mobian species developed their own society in less than 1,000 years, from primitive to the most because most of the Mobian societies on Mobius weren't actually advanced, except for the Echidnas. They were the first ones to actually be advanced. But the rest of the Mobius societies, like the Kingdom Acorn, wasn't even that didn't exist yet. But when that happened to develop, most of the societies were only as Middle Ages to pre-industrial age. They don't even have any form of advanced technology. But that is just the thing. Because until when Kingdom of Acorn was established, there had even been even not even 1,000 years between the time when the alien attacked Earth and until the Kingdom of Acorn had been established. Not even 1,000 years. It had been 12,000 years. And that was the very possibly because if this is supposed to be happening, that if Earth was attacked by this alien species Exorda in the early 2000s, in the early 21st century, and it was 12,000 years later until when the Kingdom of Acorn had established. Normally the timeline the year would have been around 14,000 AD, not 3,000. So I was like, how the heck is that even possible? But unless, but it turned out that the Mobians, they don't even use the same time calendar system as humanity did. They had developed their own. So from the time, sure, that makes sense. But I do wonder. Also, in the Archie comics, there is actually even one human settlement that still has real humans that was not affected by these gene bombs 1,000 years ago, or those thousands of years. They were living in this underground environment called Station Square. They had lived there as normal humans for 12,000 years. So I wonder, did they still maintain the same Earth calendar from the early 2000s all the way to the Kingdom of Acorns? Like, was that even? I don't even know. But the Sonic universe itself was, well, unique. I mean, if you think about it, that speaking of on the Sonic character, Sonic universe, there is actually one that is not even considered as non-canon. That's Sonic Underground. Because in that series, Sonic, Sonia, and Manic are triplets. In the fact, that is the only series that Sonic even had a sibling. In fact, that also he's the royalty. The show ended before even the whole thing. But I learned something yesterday about the Sonic Underground. That there was supposed to be another character that was supposed to be mentioned, or at least part of the show. the king. The king itself, was originally supposed to be in it. But the fact that if anyone try to look up the concept art for this king from Sonic Underground, you won't find any because there was not even published. He was never even named. They're like he was never any design of him was never even made. He was only being discussed. So the king or the father of the triplets, he was never mentioned, not even once in an entire show. And that's just one of the many reasons. And also the thing is that the individual family, there is Queen Alina and her triplets. Then you're thinking there are only like 4 echidnas in an entire Mobius from the Sonic Underground. But there aren't. Officially, there is not even 4. There's actually 6 hedgehogs. One is Uncle Chuck, Sonic's adopted uncle that happened to take him in after Sonic's adopted parents were taken away by Robotnik. So Uncle Chuck in Sonic Underground is not even related to Sonic. He only calls him that. And the 6th hedgehog in the Sonic Underground is not even either related to Sonic or his family. He's also a male hedgehog, but his name, I think, was Luke Perwinkle. He was a movie actor. He pretended for the triplets that he was the uncle. Because he was a movie actor, but in the end, I was like, okay, there's like 6 hedgehogs in the entire Sonic Underground. But in the Sonic the Hedgehog, like the one of the Free Fighters in it, there's only like 2 known. Sonic and his uncle, Sir Charles Hedgehog. They were the only ones in the Hedgehog family. In fact, even though that since Sonic ZDM or Sonic the Hedgehog, it was also known as, in fact, in Archie Comics, it was later revealed more details about his family because his mother, Bernadette Hedgehog, was a Robian. That is the term of the Mobians who have been turned into robots or being roboticized. And Jules Hedgehog is his father. And in his family, only his dad, only Jules, is the only one has been left behind, left as a Robian. It's not because that he chooses to be as a Robian. No, he has to. Because Jules had to stay as a Robian, as a robot, but he now has a full free will. Because if he had been restored back to the living, he would die. He would eventually die. That is the question that remains. If within seconds, minutes, hours, days, why would that happen? Well, it turns out that he actually was injured, mortally wounded during the Great War. So in order to save him, Charles Hedgehog turned him, used the roboticizer in order to save him. And that was the only way for him to be alive. So basically, from I understand of the Archie comics, Jules, along with a few others, are the only robots alive that's still as robots. And those other ones that had also remained as Robians was actually a group of dragons. They actually fled to a hidden underground sanctuary under a volcano. But Yeah, so I think it's a very unusual because in the Sonic the Hedgehog or Object Comics, we have his mother, Bernadette Hedgehog. In the Sonic Underground, we had Queen Alina. But in Sonic other series that we had, like say Sonic Boom, Sonic Prime, Sonic X, that is another thing. That was the only thing. And I also learned that from Sonic 2, the live action one, Tails, he actually explained to Sonic that his village considered him as a freak because that he had two tails. And he had heard stories, legends about Sonic being the fastest creature in the galaxy. And that he also was some sort of a freak because that he was the fastest. But he was a legend. So Sonic or Tails left his village to find Sonic. And I think Sonic the movie itself were so far is gonna be interesting. I'm actually looking forward to see what the Sonic 4 has planned for us for the next, since that movie isn't set to be released until 2027. And I'm very curious, since I've seen all three movies already. But I'm just curious because there is certainly at least one thing. Amy has been in the fourth movie. In the fourth movie, I mean, after all, she appeared in the end of the third. They would have been crazy if she was not included in the fourth. But I do wonder. I mean, if you think about it, throughout those series that those shows where Amy happened to have been in, she had shown affection towards Sonic. So, will she be doing the same thing in the fourth movie? But here's a very much a good question. Will Sonic's adopted parents even adopt her? So if they adopt her, will they still be able to be showing affection towards each other? Don't know. But I do wonder, at least I also presume that Shadow might even appear in the Sonic 4 movie. I mean, there was literally confirmed that he had survived at the end of the third movie. But I'm very curious about what's going to happen in the Sonic 4. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they already had Sonic 5 in mind also. I mean, not that they're developing Sonic the fifth movie already, but just had that considering it, had that in the only like considering that. But there's another thing I really also find out that was very surprising. A few days ago, when I was on Facebook, I actually saw this picture, Hotel Transylvania 5. I was like, wow, that's pretty nice. That's an AI generated picture of a fan made video or a movie. But I just thought of why not? So I looked it up, and apparently Hotel Transylvania 5 is currently in the development. But it hasn't even been given an actually a date for that movie is going to be released. And since they also made a Hotel Transylvania TV show, series a few years back on for Nickelodeon, since that show was set to take place sometime before Mavis and Johnny actually met. But here's the thing. I learned that the fact that there's going to be a new Hotel Transylvania series on TV by next year. But it's called Motel Transylvania. There's little information known about it. It's only like that Mavis and Dracula had left Transylvania and had settled down in California to open up their first motel in the desert for so that both humans and monsters can live there. But that is also I don't know if that movie is gonna be set play that series is taking place between the third or fourth movie or even years before. But I don't think so because it was before she met Johnny, that wouldn't make sense because that will ruin the whole timeline. I mean, before then, monsters and humans didn't even they were not friendly towards each other. Like, I mean, they wasn't even aware that the classic monsters like vampires and that they existed. But I'm very curious to see how this Motel Transylvania might actually be like. And that one is set to be released in 2026, at least earliest that we have that I know of. But I'm very curious. Hotel Transylvania has always given a lot of laughter, but from I understood from Phi Goddess told me uh, that the fourth movie, The Vacation, would be the last Hotel Transylvania movies. In fact, when I looked up, they said it's going to be the final one, but nope. The fifth movie is into development. I don't know if the movie is going to be released this year, next year, or even in 2028. But if I give it a chance to say yes, it may have to be around, I believe, either 2026 or 2027, give or take. So that's going to be interesting to see how things, well, certainly developing, but it's still going to be an very much interested. My Sonic show will have reference from the Sonic games, comics, stuff. It will be an interesting, different Sonic show that fans will certainly love. Well, Cody, that depends on from which comics. I mean, Archie comics and others. That also depends if you're referring to the old timeline, the new timeline, and oh, trust me, that's gonna be huge. Because if you want to make a show that be a reference to all of that, you may actually have to do some deep research into come up with all that. But yeah, I mean, I very much in. I mean, considering the fact that Sonic actually have been one of the most, other from um Pokemon, that's literally one of the, literally one of the biggest franchises in games. I mean, Sonic was first made, and also around some only around a few years after the Sonic game was even made, they actually included when they included Tails. They decided to make an actual TV show, Sonic the Hedgehog, Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic X, Sonic Boom, which I think it's many fans hate due to the fact that they actually made Knuckles dumb. Um, but yeah, um, of speaking of Knuckles, of his character that's from the Archie comics, there's only one show that literally matched his personality. That's Sonic X. Sonic Underground, he only appeared in a few episodes, but when they turned Knuckles in the Sonic Boom, turned him like a complete idiot. Wow, that was just a low blow. Low blow. I mean, Knuckles is a well beloved character, but when he was included in the Sonic the Hedgehog movies, okay, they hit the nail on that one. I cannot deny it's perfectly match of his personality, how he is, and maybe a little bit some changes. But I'm thinking Sonic franchise as itself is very, very great. I mean, I even saw this like you Cody, you told me about this Pokemon Wind and Waves. I was like, whoa. I mean, I was expecting. I mean, back in when Pokemon Generation 8 had been released, I said, with the next 5 years, the next Pokemon game will be released. And then 3 years later, boom, Pokemon Generation 9 was officially released. Aurora announced it's going to be. And then, back in 2021, I actually said that with the next 5 years, the next Pokemon game will be released. And sure enough, 2027 is when the Pokemon Wind and Waves are going to be released. And I am honestly not surprised. But I'm very curious about exactly about this particular generation. What kind of legendaries will be expected to be seen this time? I mean, who even knows? And even as the for past few months, they have actually been releasing the mega form of the Dragon Knight Raichu as a mega evolution. That's also epic because in the series of the friend on the whole game series, there has only been a handful of Pokemon that actually um, can have a mega form evolution. But there's also if there are like I mean within the Pokemon games, there are only a few Pokemon that has a mega form, but there's even fewer Pokemon that has a double mega form, like Mewtwo, Charizard, and a few others. That's very interesting. So we'll be in, but there is one thing that I may actually expect it to happen that within the next Pokemon Generation 10, we should be expecting probably more mega forms or even some other new, completely brand new regional variants. Because throughout this series, we have been giving like the Alolan Raichu, who is an electric psychic. We have the Alolan Vulpix, type. Meowth, who's a dark type, which normally is a normal type. So I may wonder what other types of regional variant might we be able to see in the next Pokemon generation? I mean, could you imagine? Okay, the one thing is Mewtwo one may not even be that since he was created, not a natural Pokemon. But can you imagine a new variant of say Magikarp? Because the Kanto version, he is considered the most weakest Pokemon, but in regional variant of Magikarp might actually be has twice as strong and evolve to maybe a more impressive Gyarados. A Gyarados that can actually even fly, or do I even dare to say it? What if, what if they may even been given a Mew, but as a regional variant? Because Mew is a psychic. I mean, what if they decide to give us a new type of Mew, but has not even psychic? He could be maybe they're gonna be an electric type, or perhaps even a dual type. There, but there's also in okay, this is actually not even considered as canon Pokemon, but they are part of the trading cards. Delta Pokemon. If people don't know what Delta Pokemon is, it's basically like say a Pikachu a Pikachu on the card won't be an electric type. It could be a grass type, ghost type, water type, and that the fact that that Pikachu, if that would have been a water Delta, that water Delta Pikachu could use water types moves, but still being vulnerable to electric moves. But I'm still curious about the Gen 10 Pokemon is going to be like. Like, how many new, like, how many regional variants will we be seeing? Or, I don't even know. What if Scootaloo and Furry Heart had a crush on each other? Hmm, that's a good question. Well, I mean, uh, I mean, I don't know. Considering that Flurry Heart might actually grow up, and since Flurry Heart, while growing up in Kelsey, who might still be in the stone statue prison for all the time. And of course, Flurry might actually heard about stories about Kelsey from Cadence, Twilight, or basically anyone. Honestly, I'm curious to see what that's going to be happening. But we know for a fact that speaking of the MLP, um, it's going to be another, since they literally developing are returning back to the pony MLPs for returning this year, and the fact that uh, um, right, G4 is returning for 2026, but only in comics, not as an actual show. And I think there was something about also that G5 is going to be returning, but I'm not sure exactly because they also mentioned a new animated series of MLP is going to be somehow also this year, but it's the information about that one is very very limited. It's not precise to say in it, but we don't even know for a fact if the new anime series is going to be G4, G5, or G6. And it's like, it's so like, what about if it's going to be G7? That's impossible because you can't jump from G5 to G7 within skipping G6. That's impossible. It's like you're jumping you're turning from 5 years old, 6 years old, and then you're turning from, or you're 5 years old and you're turning six. Now we're turning to seven. It's basically the same math in that. So I wonder what that new anime series was going to be even like. Who knows? But I'm also very cautious about this um, the live action MLP movie that's also being currently being developed by Hasbro and Amazon Studios. I am very cautious about this one. I mean, we don't even know for a fact if that's going to be G4. The only version of this, if this is going to be a live action, there's only one part of the MLP franchise that I think works perfectly. That would be the Equestria Girls. I mean, they're already in a human world, and they don't even have to be using CGI. But yeah. But what other movies are we expecting for this year? Well, there's actually a movie that I'm curious to know more about, and that is Avatar. And no, not James Cameron's The Na'vi Avatar, but Avatar: The Last Airbender. There's gonna be a new Avatar: The Last Airbender movie set to place sometime this year. And information is very limited at also, except that the characters is actually are in their mid to in their 20s at least. They had also revealed it's going to be a bad guy, but they haven't the name of the bad guy yet. But they have the voice actor for this particular villain, and I'm curious to see more about it. Mario 2, yeah, that's true. That's also being released, and but that's but there is another thing I'm very curious also to know more about. Avatar Seven Heavens. If you hadn't even heard of that, that's the next Avatar series that's taking place after Legend of Korra. And this one itself is gonna be quite of a mystery. Because Avatar Seven Heavens are, well, it's already being given, there's gonna be 2 seasons, total of 13, I believe, episodes. And in this in this world, in the new Avatar series that's being released by next year, is that the Avatar isn't even looked into as the hero, but as the destructor, the world destroyer of worlds. People, the new Avatar is named Pavi, a young Earthbender girl. And if people have heard that she is the next Avatar, they will be hunting her down. because people in this new world don't look up to the Avatar; they look down her, fear her or him, and that is one of the worst. In fact, she is also one of the very few that has a twin. Polly has a twin, but that we don't even know how this one even look like though. But we also know that Pavi from the new Avatar series has a friend, a mentor, an airbender by the name Jay. And I was like, okay. But people may wonder, is he somehow related to um, Tenzin and his kids? Not necessarily meaning for that, because he could be a descendant from any of the thousands of the new airbenders that was gained the powers from the harmonic conversion. But I'm very curious of this new Avatar series. I mean, the Avatar, the Seven Heavens, is very going to be very epic to see. But we don't even know exactly how many years is between the end of, well, in exactly what year that show is said to be taking place in. Because the show ended around the year 174 AG, but the comics continued that series until like 176 AG. But if I'm suspecting that the new Avatar series, Avatar: The Seven Heavens, may actually be taking place around, I guess, maybe around some time mid to late 200s AG, something like that. I mean, it seems only logical that since, I mean, after all, the series ended on 174 AG. So if it had to be happening the next Avatar after Korra, I mean, we don't, but that also ties to one thing: how old Korra will even be. Because the avatars in the series don't even necessarily have to just be 100 years old when they had to die. Because Avatar Kyoshi, she was 230 years old when she died. So who knows? Korra could actually easily have been lived through, I could say, 190 years old, or even perhaps even 200, or even perhaps, I don't know, 300 years. We don't even know for the fact exactly what year the new Avatar series is going to be set place in. They had only been released the picture of the new Avatar, Pavi, her new friend, mentor, Jay, and her animal guide, um, and the fact that the Avatar isn't even looked up to as a hero, but as the fear of being, because to them, the Avatar brought destruction of the entire world. Another thing is, are still the four nations still intact? Probably not. But that's another thing. What about the What about the status of the airbenders? We know that her airbender master or airbender mentor Jay is an airbender. So who knows? Maybe there might be other airbenders around the world. But even if she would have died at this end of the second season of the new Avatar series, her spirit will only be reborn into a new Avatar, well, in the next cycle. So I just don't know exactly. I mean, after all, she's the second known female Avatar in the order. First was Aang, next was Korra, next was Pavi. Who knows the next one will be? I mean, it's very interesting to see how this new. I mean, there were even rumors that there's going to even will be an Avatar series based on Avatar Kyoshi. I mean, I don't even know. I mean, Avatar Kyoshi. No, wait. But all the avatars that we know of, there's only two that has a twin. Pavi has a twin. Ruku had a twin brother. Many fans wondered, so if there's the current avatar had a twin, Would it also the fact that this twin could also be the Avatar? No. Unfortunately, no. It can only be one. But there was actually a small fact when I learned about Ruku's twin, his twin brother, is that he died very young. He was about 12 when he died in the. He was only mentioned, I believe, in the wow, some comics, I believe, or some books that made about the Avatar series. But there's only one other small artifact. The only other thing about the Avatar, the live action season 2 of the Avatar, they made a big mistake. Because we know for a fact the last Airbender Avatar series all happened during 1 year. But during this new Avatar, the live action that's going to be on Netflix, well, let's say for the fact that it's not going to be just one. It's not just being able to continue from the previous season as it ended, continue on from there. Apparently, it has been some time, not even like a few weeks or even a few months, but from what I understood, 1 to 2 years had passed between them. And I was like, the whole new Netflix Avatar series. I mean, when I first heard about it a couple of years before then, I was like, whoa, they are actually bringing a whole new series. But they were first supposed to be the same voice, the same actors from the first Avatar live action movie. But since the movie itself was a big flop, I mean, it was a big fiasco. There was supposed to be a trilogy, but after the first movie was so bad, the trilogy was canceled. But a few years later, when I learned the fact it's going to be a Netflix series, I was like, wow, okay. I was very surprised, but I'm also very cautious. And I had the right to be cautious because when I first saw this entire series, I was like, what the hell? And the whole series was so bad. Okay, I can admit that the scene that we've seen that the airbenders fighting off the firebender soldiers at the Southern Air Temple. Okay, that was pretty interesting because that was never even mentioned. We can only see in the original series the remains of firebender soldiers alongside with the remains of Monkey Atzo. And but that is only be a scene. But seeing how the fights actually took place in the Netflix series, okay, I admit that was unexpected. But the whole Netflix Avatar series, it was, I mean, in my opinion, is a complete fiasco. It just they mixed the whole. They didn't even continue. They even made the show directly as the original series by actually order. They put some of the order. They put the Netflix Avatar series episodes in a wrong order, not in the right and full order that the actual series happened. I mean, it's just, and they even showing that they are burning people like even like the previous, I think it was Fire Lord Susan and later Fire Lord Osai burning someone alive in front of his own daughter and a few other people. I was like, what the? Are you serious? And I learned the fact that the creators of the original series of the Avatar, they were actually part of the production, but they left because they couldn't see the eye to eye with the new people behind it. I was like, oh man, I understand why. I mean, even when they met the bird, the owl spirit, originally in the original series, Aang, Katara, and Sokka could understand him. But in the new version, only Aang can only understand him because apparently the humans' brains aren't even developed enough, or at least aren't even don't even have are capable of to understand that only the avatar which has a sense and ability to understand any spirit to talk. So I may wonder. So if like in a new series, a new season of the Avatar now from Netflix, if they happen to encounter other spirits, would would will Sokka and Katara not be able to understand those spirits, and only Aang is only one that's gonna be that? Oh man, that's just if it happened, oh man, that's gonna be just peachy. But in my opinion, Netflix Avatar series is a complete fiasco. It should even, in my opinion, it's not even canon at all. I mean, they put the episodes in a complete wrong order as originally as they're supposed to be. Many fans who had seen this, like some of my other friends had also seen this, heard about it, they agreed. It can't be denied that they put the series in wrong order with all that. I mean, it's unbelievable. But I'm thinking of still be watching the second season of the Netflix Avatar. Even despite I don't even like it, I'm just curious to see how much else they're being messed up. The first season of the Avatar well, Netflix, they messed it up so much. I wonder how the second season, in fact, from what I understood, they actually are planning for at least total of 4 or 5 seasons. So I understand they are planning for the third and the fourth season already for the Netflix Avatar. I was like, what? And the second season hadn't even been released yet. At least, I don't know, sure, but still. Um, Same thing probably with the live action One Piece. About that, I don't know. I mean, I hadn't even seen the anime One Piece, so I couldn't even tell the comparison for between the anime and the live action of One Piece. I can't compare to them with if this each if the new version is even better or worse. I I mean I haven't even never seen the One Piece, and I'm not planning to do so either. Oh, okay. Cody, you know that since they made a live action of Pokemon series, the movie, the Detective Pikachu, but I know you don't like this particular anime. But what if they actually made a live action version of the Digimon? Oh boy. I mean, Digimon as a live action. I could probably see. I mean, I probably wouldn't even like it much, but I would probably just. Look like the to watch the first trailer of that movie or something. But if you think about it, there have been several shows over the years that was originally as a cartoon, but had turned into an actual live action, like Pokemon. Let's see where else. Sonic, the Smurfs. What else? Well, but there are a lot of others. Cody, did you have you watched Denver, the Last Dread, the dinosaur, while growing up? Have you? Yeah. Um, okay, I loved Denver, the Last Dinosaur when I was as a kid watching it that growing up. Apparently, they rebooted that series back in 2018, and wow, they really ruined that show. You know why? Well, it turns out that back in the 2018, with the rebooted Denver, the Last Dinosaur, those five kids, teenagers who found his egg, they weren't that, they weren't, no, in the new version, they weren't five. There were only two. And in fact, in the original series, those five teenagers plus one of the teenagers' younger sister had to keep him secret from the outside world because they were afraid that someone would take him for experiment on or even try to some test or perhaps put him in on some sort of zoo. But in the new version of this entire rebooted one, well, let's say that was complete different. In fact, he can be walking around in town openly, and he can go to the school, he can go to the store without people even do anything. In fact, the family of those two kids that actually found him, actually, there's only one kid in the family. His parents adopted Denver as his kid's brother. Yeah, it's not as a pet, but as an actual brother. And the only difference is that the original Denver from the series, he was quite tall, maybe say 5 feet tall. But in the new version, he is way smaller. He is probably like I think that Denver, the new reboot series, he's probably like 3 to 4 feet tall, and that is they ruined one classic cartoon from the late 90s. I mean, come on. Can you really can going it so far? But they never actually published that series so much on the actual show, only rebooted for some clips or something like that. Um, but there was one other series that's also back in the 90s, SWAT Cats. The SWAT Cats is going to be rebooted, and it's not going to be animated as the original series, but more like CGI type style. And honestly, making the whole SWAT cast a different style and different storyline, that's gonna be ruined for many loyal fans to that series as well. I mean, I do get it that the company who is making this series will bring them back, that they were you know, to revive it or maybe reboot it a new style, kind of like when they meant what they also made with Biker Mice from Mars. The original series also from the 90s, but they rebooted that one, or at least went with a new version of the series, but that one was still animated. So at least that okay, that's good. But if they were somehow to bring back, say, another classic from my childhood, which was made years before I was even born, Dino Riders. The Dino Riders from the 1988 or 85, if they somehow rebooted that series like a CGI version, I'd be like, are you kidding me? If that happened, I would not be happy. Seriously. I mean, I understand that many want to some shows have been rebooted or given that they're brought back without actually be rebooted, but they are just bring it back, but new, additional, better things. But I should also mention that the new Avatar movie, The Last Airbender, that's going to be released this year, that is going to be animated as the original. But for what I understood, when they are using the bending styles, like when they're using fire, like when Zuko is going to use his fire bending, that part's going to be CGI. Well, at least for what I heard, I'm not sure if that is true. If it is, Who knows? I mean, considering for how many shows out there throughout the years, like the Smurfs, the very first Smurfs I used to be watching when I was a kid, there was like this one was from the 1987, and the new one they made when the I believe that's the one they actually included the female version of the Smurfs from the Lost Village in the new series of that's also Nickelodeon. Okay, I mean it's kind of a bit strange. The new Garfield movie, for example, that they made, when he meets his long lost dad, never saw it, and honestly, I'm not even going to either. It's just so many movies out there, so many shows, and it has been so many different versions. I mean, don't get me started on some other series. Um, like, let's see, there's actually like say Star Wars. There actually are one movie series, a few movies of Star Wars, which not include any of the original actors. George Lucas or Harrison Ford, I mean Luke, Han, Leia are not even in that one. Chewbacca, 3PO, or R2D2 are not even either in this particular movie. This actually happened, I believe, is happened on the I believe it's between the fourth or the sixth movie of Star Wars, and this is about a family who crash lands on Endor, and that they encounters the son and the daughter encounters the Ewoks, and from what I understand, in the end, only the girl survives. In the end, but there are um, Star Wars the droids, Star Wars Ewok series. Um, I haven't seen much of those, but there is actually one uh, Star Wars: The Clone Wars before the seventh season was even made, even before it was even announced it's going to be the seventh final season. There was one season that were in fact in development, but unfortunately was eventually cancelled. That one is called the Legacy season. So I still curious to know more. I mean, we know if there's gonna be another Star Wars movie with Rey Skywalker as the main character, but exactly when this particular movie is gonna be released, who knows? But it's officially that's gonna happen within this year, next year, or even 2028. Who even knows? But according to Star Wars or Wikipedia, there are at least I think it's like 8 or 9 movies that's was being planned to be made. There was actually one movie that was also developed. Well, the script and all that was made, and they were given to some sort of the director, and the movie itself was given green light. But eventually, the CEO of Disney pulled the plug in that movie. Star Wars: Hunt for Ben Solo. Hunt for Ben Solo was supposed to be a movie taking place after Rise of Skywalker. But I mean, even the script has had already been made, and the whole concept had been green light. But only the fact happened to be shut down by the CEO of Disney. I was like, what? But in the end, if you ask me, it makes sense because Ben died and his body vanished at the end of Rise of the Skywalker. So if he was being hunted down or hunt for him after the movie, even in his own movie, how would you explain that? I mean, if he had to rechange the whole ending with that his body was still and that he survived but he left the planet Exegol and vanished somewhere in the galaxy, that would make sense to why the movie Hunt for Ben Solo would happen. But since he died at the end of the movie and his body vanished, became part of the Force, I mean, even the fact that script for the Ben Solo Hunt for Ben Solo had been made and also had given all the green lights and boom, gone. It's been shut down. That's just how things are. But anyways, I think the stream has been going on for long enough. I mean, considering for the fact that the hunt for Ben Solo itself, I mean, he died at the end of the last movie. His body became part of Force, and so why would anyone make a movie idea Hunt for Ben Solo? I mean, how would you even do that? Yeah. So I'll see you next time, though, Cody. Well, the next stream, I can't say exactly when it's gonna be. It's uh, it's gonna be for a while. So yeah. Well, everyone, thanks for all being watching this time. So until next time, this is Switch Diablo signing off. Bye.